Hello and welcome to an IELTS essay or IELTS writing part 2 essay. In this series of videos we're going to look at a "to what extent do you agree" essay. Probably, in my opinion, the most difficult type of essay to structure. In this first video we're going to look at how to get a 7 or an 8 or a 9 for how you answer the question. And the way to do that is by analyzing the question carefully, the exam statement. Okay. Here we have a checklist. What is the general topic of the exam task? What are the specific details of the opinion? So there's an opinion that you need to agree or disagree with. And then you need to think about what your position is. So let's have a look at the task. This was sent to me by a student. I did a Google search and a lot of different websites came up with the same question. So I assume it's from Cambridge Practice Test for IELTS. I don't know for sure, but it's a very popular question. Okay, so the first one there is, what's the general topic? So press pause and read this now. Okay, now I'm going to go through it very quickly. So if it's too quick, press pause and read it yourself. Okay, so today the high sales of popular consumer goods. Yeah, so it's about sales of goods reflect the power of advertising and not the real needs of the society. So it's about goods that are selling, advertising, and needs of society. And then, to what extent do you agree? It's worth pointing that out. Sometimes, it's do you agree? Sometimes it's to what extent do you agree? Here it's to what extent. Okay, so the general topic is about sales. Let's make that a bit bigger. It's about sales of goods and advertising and needs. Okay, they're the general ideas. And then what are the specific details of the opinion? So as you can see, it's quite detailed. So it's about today and it's about the high sales. So that's the first thing. You've got high sales. So I'll put that in bold. It's high sales. There I just had sales, the general idea, of popular consumer goods. Of popular consumer goods. So the general idea was sales of something, but here it's high sales of popular consumer goods. So it's a good idea to stop and think, okay, what is a popular consumer good? And I suppose the answer would be telephone. You've got an oven mitt. They're probably not thinking about oven mitts. Thinking about telephones, thinking about computers, laptops, possibly things in terms of food and stuff like that, the food that people buy. Okay, and then high sales. So again, oven mitts doesn't fit there. Okay, so we're thinking about that. Okay, so there, lots and lots of phones are being sold. Lots and lots of phones are being sold. Okay, reflect. So that's an interesting one, reflect. So if we look at that, we've got sales is the subject. Sales is the subject there. And these sales, the verb reflect. So it's focused around sales. That's very important to note. Reflect the power of advertising and not. So there's one of our big keywords, and. You always need to pay attention to and. It's here on the list, and, because, the most, any. The reason why you need to pay attention to it, because it means there are two things. So number one, reflect, number one, the power of advertising, and not, number two, the real needs of society. Okay. So that reflect, it means because of, number one, advertising, number two, real needs. And I should put a not, that's a keyword there. So let's stop and think about that. So we've got our example of a phone. Okay, now there are high sales of this phone. Is that because of the advertising, or is it because of the real needs? Now this opinion is that lots of these phones are sold because of advertising, the power of advertising, and not because of the real needs. So a lot of details here. The real needs of the society. That's another detail there. I almost missed that detail. Real needs of the society. It's very difficult. So it's not the needs of the individual, me. It's the needs of society. Okay, so lots of these phones are sold. What do you think? Are lots of these phones sold because of advertising? So society doesn't need these phones. But people buy these phones because of the advertising. Now, I feel that society needs these phones now already, because that's a lot. Society functions due to the presence of these phones to a large extent. Okay, so in the case of phones, that's definitely true. But let's think of some more products that are consumer goods that are very, very popular, or that are not very, very, that are popular and have high sales. I suppose coffee, you see a lot of people walking around drinking coffee. Yeah, and I think the real needs of society, interesting enough, my mother-in-law was talking about this the other day, and she said that back in the day, um, people didn't drink coffee that much at all, whereas now people seem to drink a lot. So, does society need it now and not before? Maybe, I don't know. What's your opinion? A lot of people are office workers. As an office working society, does this society need coffee? So the answer is probably not. Okay, so thinking about my position, I would say that the extent to which I agree depends. So for some products, I agree, and for others, I fully disagree. So for phones, for example. This is a complicated topic. When it comes to the IELTS, you probably want to try and make it easier for yourself. When you do an it depends, it gets quite difficult. So in terms of tactics, what you might like to do is just think, okay, I mostly disagree. I think that generally things that are bought, cars that are consumer goods that are quite popular and have high sales, society needs these cars. Phones, society needs these phones. And then like in some little bits I disagree. There are some products where, for example, luxury goods, but then again, high society might need luxury goods. I'm not sure. But again, that's getting very philosophical and complicated. Best to keep it easy. So I'm going to change that and say I mostly disagree. I think that I mostly disagree because most of the time it's the real needs of the society that accounts for, is the reason for the high sales. So again, stuff like the high sales are because of needs of society. So you can see I'm focusing around the high sales. The high sales are because of. Now, the reason why it's so important to think very carefully, particularly about number 2, what are the specific details, is because if you do this correctly, you will not overgeneralize. If you do it incorrectly, if you're not careful, you'll overgeneralize. And when you overgeneralize, the maximum you're going to get is probably a 6. Probably a 6. Okay? Let's have a look at a couple of examples of things that people might say in their introduction. I've got 3 things here, 3 statements that might appear in an introduction, or maybe even in the body. So, I agree that advertising definitely influences what people buy. So that kind of looks good. Oh yeah, this is what it's about. Advertising definitely influences. But it's not. It's missing a specific detail. And the specific detail is connected with, is connected with high sales. There's nothing here in that statement that's connected with high sales. Advertising definitely influences what people buy. But it's not talking about high sales. It's not there. So number 1 looks good, but in actual fact it's overgeneralizing. Number 2, this is a bit better. People buy things because of advertising. So that's already a bit closer to sales. Sales is people buying something. But if you look at the last one, things that are popular because of advertising. That's exactly what this task is looking at. It's looking at these things are popular because of what? Because of sales or because of needs. So unfortunately, a lot of people will not focus in on the sales, on the purchases of these things. And the reason for that, I think, is the language here is quite difficult. It says the high sales reflect. Yeah, so reflect here is implying, are because of. Now that's unfortunate because I think if IELTS wrote something like this, the high sales of popular consumer goods, something like this, some goods are popular and have high sales because of advertising and not the real needs of society in which they are sold. Like, if this was the question here, this is the same question. Some goods are popular and have high sales because of advertising and not the real needs of society. Most people would focus correctly. But unfortunately, we have this fairly difficult wording. And the key is to always look at the subject. Look at the subject because that's the focus. And that way you're less likely to make a mistake. Okay, so that's it for the first video. Just to recap, we ascertained that the general topic was about sales of goods and its connection with advertising and needs. And then the specific details of these goods have high sales and popular, and it's because of the power of advertising and not the real needs of society. I don't know how important real is there. Okay, and then my position was like mostly disagree with that. So have a think about your position. Brainstorm what you would write. What ideas do you have? 2 paragraphs, 2 reasons in each paragraph. And then have a look at the next video in this series in which we'll analyze an example answer.